My beloved child. The wedding hall was filled with smiling faces, joyful music, and hearts waiting for one unforgettable moment. Every guest believed they were about to witness the beginning of a beautiful forever. No one imagined that just a few whispered words would stop the entire ceremony. And no one was prepared for the emotional confession that would leave every heart completely silent. Because the truth they were about to hear was about you. Listen carefully. This story has found you for a reason. Sometimes the greatest love stories are not destroyed by distance, time, or another person. Sometimes they are paused until one soul finally finds the courage to speak the truth. What you are about to hear is a fictional, emotional story about love, regret, and destiny. Stay with this message until the very end, because every moment reveals another hidden piece of a much bigger picture. The wedding had been planned for months. Every invitation had been sent. Every flower had been placed with care. The families believed every problem from the past had finally disappeared. Smiles filled every corner of the room as the guests watched your soulmate walk slowly toward the altar. Everyone admired how calm they looked on the outside. But deep inside, their heart carried a storm that no one else could see. Every step toward the altar felt heavier than the last because every promise they were about to make reminded them of a promise they had never truly broken inside their heart. They had tried everything to forget you. They convinced themselves that moving forward was the only choice left. Friends encouraged them to start over. Family members insisted that life had to continue. They smiled whenever people asked if they were happy. They nodded whenever someone congratulated them on finding their future. Yet every single night, when the world became quiet, your name echoed inside their thoughts. They never spoke it aloud, but it remained the one truth they could never erase. Don't skip. Because what happened next changed everything. As the ceremony began, the officiant smiled warmly and invited everyone to stand. The music softened. The bride and groom faced one another. Tears of happiness appeared in the eyes of parents and relatives. Cameras captured every second, believing history was about to be made. Then came the familiar question that everyone had been waiting to hear. Do you take this person to be your lawfully wedded spouse? Silence. A silence so deep that even the music seemed to disappear. Everyone assumed it was simply an emotional moment. Some guests smiled, believing happy tears had made it difficult to answer. But another long silence followed. Your soulmate lowered their head. Their hands began to shake. Their breathing became uneven. The happiness that had filled the room slowly turned into confusion. The officiant repeated the question. Again. There was no answer. Instead, your soulmate looked across the crowded room as though searching for someone who wasn't there. Their eyes filled with tears that could no longer be hidden. Every memory they had buried for so long suddenly returned all at once. The laughter you once shared. The dreams that were never fulfilled. The promises made beneath quiet skies. Every forgotten feeling rushed back with overwhelming force. Then, with a trembling voice that barely anyone could hear, they whispered, "I can't say I do. Because there is something everyone here deserves to know about you." The entire wedding hall froze. Every conversation stopped. Every face turned toward your soulmate in complete disbelief. And before anyone could understand what they meant, they took a deep breath and prepared to reveal the emotional confession they had hidden for years. The room remained completely silent. No one moved. No one even dared to whisper. Every guest stared at your soulmate, waiting for the explanation that had suddenly become more important than the wedding itself. The officiant gently lowered the ceremony book. The musicians stopped playing. Even the cameras that had been capturing joyful memories now focused on a moment no one had expected to witness. Your soulmate closed their eyes for a few seconds, trying to gather the courage they had been searching for all these years. When they finally looked up, tears were already streaming down their face. Their voice trembled, but every word carried the weight of a heart that had been silent for far too long. "I was ready to marry today because I believed I had no other choice," they said softly. "I told myself that the past was gone. That the person I truly loved had forgotten me. That destiny had already decided our future. But every step I took toward this altar reminded me of someone I could never stop loving. Every promise I was about to make felt like a promise I had already made in my heart. Long ago." The guests looked at one another in complete confusion. Some family members lowered their heads. Others seemed uncomfortable, as though they already knew fragments of a truth they had never dared to reveal. The person standing beside your soulmate remained speechless, realizing that this was no longer just a wedding. It had become the moment when years of hidden emotions refused to stay buried any longer. Don't skip. Because the next confession changed the atmosphere forever. Your soulmate took another deep breath before continuing. "I never stopped loving you. Not for one day. Not for 1 hour. Not even for a single heartbeat. I only stopped believing that I would ever have the chance to tell you the truth." A wave of emotion swept through the room. Several guests quietly wiped tears from their eyes. Parents who had arrived expecting celebration suddenly found themselves listening to a love story they had never fully understood. Every smile disappeared. Every heart grew heavier. "I wasn't brave enough," your soulmate admitted. "When people told me to move on, I listened. When they said you had forgotten me, I believed them. When they said our story was over, I accepted their words instead of following my heart. I thought staying silent would protect everyone from pain. But my silence became the greatest mistake of my life." Their hands continued shaking as memories flooded back. "I remember every conversation we shared. Every dream we built together. Every promise we whispered when nobody else was around. I remember believing that nothing could separate us. But I underestimated how powerful fear, lies, and outside voices could become. The room felt unbearably still. I kept waiting for one message. One sign. One chance to know that you still cared. When nothing came, I convinced myself that you were happier without me. I smiled in front of everyone while my heart slowly broke behind closed doors. Several relatives quietly looked down, unable to meet each other's eyes. Then your soulmate revealed something that shocked everyone. Months ago, I received a letter. A murmur spread across the guests. It arrived without a name. There was no return address. I almost threw it away without opening it. But something inside me said I needed to read it. Your soulmate reached into a small pocket inside their jacket and carefully pulled out an old folded envelope. The edges were worn, as though it had been opened countless times. They held it tightly, almost afraid to let it go. I've carried this letter every single day since it arrived. The audience watched in complete silence. I never told anyone about it. Because I was afraid of what it might mean. Slowly unfolding the paper, they looked at the faded words before speaking again. The letter didn't tell me where you were. It didn't tell me how to find you. It only told me one heartbreaking truth. A tear landed on the page. It said, "The person you still love never stopped fighting for your happiness. They were simply never allowed to reach you." The entire wedding hall gasped. Your soulmate looked toward both families. For the first time, I realized our separation wasn't the accident everyone claimed it was. Another long silence followed. I started asking questions. I searched for answers. And what I discovered destroyed everything I believed about our past. Their voice became steadier. Someone deliberately kept us apart. The room erupted with whispers. Some relatives suddenly looked nervous. Others turned pale. One family member quietly stood up, as though preparing to leave before another word could be spoken. Your soulmate noticed immediately. And slowly pointed toward that person. "I know what you did." The entire wedding hall turned to look in the same direction. And just as that person reached for the exit, your soulmate spoke the words that would expose a hidden betrayal no one had ever imagined. They stopped halfway to the door. Every eye in the wedding hall followed them. The room felt frozen in time. No one knew whether they were trying to escape guilt, or simply escape the truth that had finally caught up with them. Your soulmate stood silently for a moment, holding the old letter tightly against their heart. Their tears had stopped now. In their place was a quiet strength that no one had seen before. "I begged myself not to say any of this today," your soulmate whispered. "I wanted this wedding to happen. I wanted everyone here to be happy. But a marriage built on a lie would only create more pain. I cannot promise forever while hiding the biggest truth of my life." The family member slowly turned around. Their face had lost all color. "You should sit down," your soulmate said calmly. "Because everyone deserves to hear what really happened." The guests remained completely silent. Even the smallest sound echoed through the hall. I spent years believing that you walked away from me. I believed you had chosen another life. Another future. Another dream. Every birthday. Every holiday. Every lonely night. I kept asking myself what I had done wrong. Your soulmate paused. But I never knew that every message I sent never reached you. A loud gasp spread across the room. Every letter I wrote. They disappeared. Every phone call. It was blocked before it ever reached you. Every attempt I made to find you. Someone made sure it failed. Don't skip. Because the truth was becoming impossible to hide. Your soulmate looked directly at the family member. You told me that you had moved overseas. You told me that you were engaged. You told me that you wanted nothing more to do with me. I believed every word. The person lowered their head. I trusted you because you were family. Another heavy silence filled the hall. I never imagined that the person I trusted most would become the reason I lost the person I loved most. Tears appeared in the eyes of several guests. Some relatives quietly began remembering conversations from years ago, small moments that had seemed unimportant then, but now suddenly made perfect sense. Your soulmate slowly unfolded another piece of paper. This isn't the only proof. The room froze again. I found old phone records. I found unopened letters. And I found something I never thought still existed. A voice recording. The guests looked at one another in disbelief. It was recorded years ago. I had never heard it until 3 nights ago. Your soulmate carefully held up a small recording device. When I pressed play, I heard a voice saying, "Don't let them meet again. If they ever speak to each other, everything we've told them will fall apart." The room erupted into shocked whispers. Some people instinctively looked toward the same family member. Others covered their mouths in disbelief. Your soulmate's voice cracked. For years, I blamed fate. I blamed distance. I blamed timing. But the truth was much more painful. We weren't separated by destiny. We were separated by someone's decision. The silence that followed felt heavier than any words. Then your soulmate looked toward the altar one final time. I cannot say, "I do" today. Not because I don't respect the person standing beside me, but because my heart still belongs to someone who never truly left it. A tear rolled down their face. If you can somehow hear these words, I need you to know. I never stopped loving you. At that exact moment, a member of the wedding staff hurried into the hall, breathing heavily, holding a sealed envelope that had just been delivered. "It's urgent," they said. "It says it must be opened immediately. And it's addressed to you." The entire wedding hall fell into complete silence as the sealed envelope was placed into your soulmate's trembling hands. No one spoke. No one even breathed normally. Every pair of eyes remained fixed on that single envelope, as though the next few moments would decide the future of everyone standing inside the room. Your soulmate looked at the handwriting on the front. Their hands began shaking uncontrollably. "I know this handwriting," they whispered. "I've seen it before." The room waited. Slowly, carefully, they broke the seal. Inside was a folded letter and an old photograph. The photograph slipped onto the floor. One of the guests picked it up. The moment they looked at it, their eyes widened. "This can't be." Everyone leaned forward. The photograph showed two smiling people standing beneath a quiet evening sky. You and your soulmate. It wasn't a wedding picture. It wasn't a formal photograph. It was a simple moment filled with genuine happiness. A moment no one in the room had ever seen before. On the back of the photograph, someone had written one sentence. "Some promises never disappear. Even when two hearts are forced apart." Your soulmate closed their eyes. A single tear rolled down their face. "I thought this picture had been destroyed years ago. But someone kept it." They unfolded the letter. The paper had faded with time. It was obvious that it had been written years earlier but had never reached its destination. Your soulmate slowly began reading aloud. "If you're reading this, then the truth has finally found its way to you. There was never a day when I stopped believing in us. Every message I sent, every letter I wrote, every prayer I whispered, was filled with hope that one day you would discover what really happened. If we never meet again, please don't blame yourself. Please don't carry guilt for a story neither of us was allowed to finish. Because I know, deep inside your heart, you never stopped loving me either." By the time the final sentence was read, there wasn't a dry eye anywhere in the wedding hall. Several guests quietly wiped away tears. Even people who had never met you felt the weight of those words. Don't skip. Because the greatest truth had still not been revealed. Your soulmate carefully folded the letter. "I spent years asking one question. Why? Why would someone destroy two lives that simply wanted to love each other?" They slowly turned toward the family member once again. "You finally admitted that you hid our messages. You admitted that you lied. But you never told everyone why." The room became painfully still. The family members' shoulders collapsed. For the first time, they stopped trying to defend themselves. Instead, they began to cry. "I was afraid," they whispered. "I thought if the two of you stayed together, our family would lose everything." The guests looked confused. "Lose what?" someone quietly asked. The family member lowered their head. It was never about love. It was about control. It was about keeping everyone exactly where I wanted them. I convinced myself I was protecting the family. But I was really protecting my own selfish fears. Another wave of silence spread through the room. Years of manipulation. Years of lies. Years of broken hearts. Had all begun because one person believed they had the right to decide someone else's future. Your soulmate slowly walked toward them. "I forgive you," they said softly. "But forgiveness cannot return the years we lost." The family member completely broke down. "I know," they whispered. "And I will regret it for the rest of my life." At that exact moment, another voice suddenly echoed from the back of the wedding hall. "Then there's one more truth everyone still needs to hear." Every person turned toward the entrance. An elderly stranger stepped inside, holding a small locked wooden box in both hands. "Looking directly at your soulmate," they said. "I was asked to deliver this only when the whole truth had finally been revealed." And written across the lid of the box was your name. At that moment, the entire wedding hall stood in complete silence. The elderly stranger slowly walked toward the altar, holding the small wooden box with both hands as though it carried something far more valuable than gold. Every guest instinctively stepped aside, creating a path through the crowd. No one questioned why this stranger had appeared. Somehow, everyone felt they were witnessing the final chapter of a story that destiny had refused to leave unfinished. The stranger stopped in front of your soulmate. "I promised many years ago," they said softly, "that I would only deliver this box when the truth could no longer be hidden." Your soulmate looked down at the faded wood. Across the lid, written in familiar handwriting, was only one sentence. "Open this only after the lies have been exposed." Their hands trembled as they unlocked it. Inside were carefully folded letters, a small silver pendant, and one final sealed envelope. The pendant was the first thing your soulmate recognized. Tears immediately filled their eyes. "I gave this to you," they whispered. "I thought it had disappeared forever." The elderly stranger nodded. "It never disappeared. It was protected. And so was the truth." Your soulmate unfolded the oldest letter. Its paper had yellowed with age. The handwriting was unmistakable. Every word carried hope instead of anger. "If you're reading this, then one day the truth finally reached you. Please don't waste another moment blaming yourself. Love was never the reason we were separated. Fear was. Lies were. The choices of others were. But even through every silent year, I never wished anything bad for you. I only prayed that one day you would know. You were always loved." By the time the final line was read, almost everyone in the hall was crying. Your soulmate gently placed the letter against their heart. For years they had believed they were mourning a love that had ended. Now they understood they had been mourning a love that had never truly died. They slowly turned toward the person waiting beside the altar. "I'm sorry," they said with complete honesty. "You deserve someone whose whole heart belongs to you. And mine never stopped belonging somewhere else." The other person quietly nodded. There was sadness in their eyes, but also understanding. "No marriage should begin with a hidden goodbye," they replied. "I hope both of you finally find the peace that was stolen from you." There was no anger, no shouting, only acceptance. The officiant gently closed the ceremony book. "The wedding is cancelled," they announced quietly. "But perhaps today, something far more important has begun." Outside, the rain that had been falling all afternoon suddenly stopped. Sunlight slowly broke through the clouds. The guests walked out in silence, carrying with them a lesson they would never forget. Real love is not measured by how quickly two people find each other. It is measured by how faithfully they carry love through seasons of silence, misunderstanding, and loss. Sometimes the greatest victory is not a wedding. Sometimes it is finally discovering the truth. As everyone prepared to leave, your soulmate looked toward the open doorway with one final smile. "I don't know where you are. I don't know if destiny will ever allow our paths to cross again. But if life gives us even one more chance, I won't let fear speak louder than my heart ever again." And somewhere beyond that doorway, beyond every unanswered question, beyond every lost year, hope quietly waited.